And now joining me as my guest is Congressman Louie Gohmert. He's the vice chair of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security. And prior to being elected to serve in Congress, Mr. Gohmert was elected to 3 terms as district judge in Smith County, Texas, and was appointed by Texas Governor Rick Perry to complete a term as Chief Justice of the 12th Court of Appeals. Sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, Gordon, always good to talk to you. It's been great when you've been here on the Hill, and we've learned from you, and it's certainly good to be talking to you by phone.
Well, thank you, sir. I guess I was, I can't remember when I was last in Juarez.
No, not in Juarez, in Washington.
Yeah. You probably have a better chance of surviving in Juarez.
Well, actually, we are a bit of a crime capital in Washington, D.C., since the local leaders of D.C. keep prohibiting any law-abiding citizen from having a gun, so that, as the bumper sticker says, only outlaws have guns here in Washington, which makes it a real haven for crime. But then you go to Juarez. I mean, I know you know this, but it took 3 years and 9 months of terrible fighting in Iraq before we lost 3,000 precious Americans in that war. In 1 year in Juarez, they've lost 3,000 people to murder. I mean, there is a war going on our border, and it spills across our border, and I can't think of any other time in our history when we would have allowed the kind of intrusions we have and not defended our sovereign territory, not defended American citizens. Some of these attacks have been so bold, some of the intrusions, like that 32-mile stretch in Arizona, I mean, those are acts of war. When you come and you're armed and you invade a country, and instead what this administration did was put up a sign that says, in essence, gee, we've given over this American territory to armed drug smugglers and human smugglers, so stay clear of this area. These are dangerous, illegal people in the country. Why don't you Americans just use an area north of the interstate? I mean, that's absurd. That's insane. That's not the country that you pledged your life to support and defend, and it sure wasn't for me either in the Army, as a prosecutor, judge, or as a congressman. Yeah,
and it certainly wasn't for me when I was in the Army and when I was a prosecutor. I've never been a judge except at a court-martial. But Pancho Villa came in, and we got Blackjack Pershing and a bunch of troops, and we chased him all the way down back to Mexico.
That's right.
And nobody seems to care anymore. I don't understand it.
Well, I sure don't either. And I like President Bush. He's a good man, but it took a number of years for some of us to persuade him to get more serious about protecting our southern border. And it wasn't, and it isn't, just people coming across for jobs. We've had projections, percentages of Middle Easterners that are coming across, and they're not coming across for jobs, and they're coming across our southern borders. We've got these drug cartels that have learned from the jihadist killers how to cut people's heads off, and they've taken from that, and they're intimidating people, and they're right on the border. I mean, you brought up Pershing. I mean, these people are a threat to our country, and since our neighbor Mexico has not been able to deal with them, then we have an obligation to America to take them out. I know you're familiar with Posse Comitatus, and I've heard people say, we can't put our own military on our border. That would violate Posse Comitatus. Not if their guns point across the border. If you turn them in on American citizens, yes. But if you put them right on the border instead of putting them miles inward, which Bush did and which Obama thinks is the best way to go, you put them on the border, the guns point across the border, you dare anybody to come across, and because they have made a city in Arizona, the number 2 kidnapping capital in the world, by golly, it's a threat to our country, our American citizens. So if you come across illegally, we'll shoot you.
Yeah, well, and they not only do they come across, but sometimes they come across in military vehicles with crew-served automatic weapons. I mean, it's just...
Well, absolutely, and if there's so many of them are smart enough to know that we have that 32-mile stretch in Arizona that we have as national park on the Mexican border, and so we've declared it wilderness area, which means our people, our border patrol, our military, you can't take a military vehicle or border patrol vehicle, no motorized vehicle at all in there. So the only people with motorized vehicles are the people illegally in there with guns. And I don't want somebody out there saying, look, he's out there wanting to shoot some poor Mexican that's coming looking for a job. I don't. I want to bring people into this country legally. We allow more legal immigration into the U.S. than any other place, and frankly, I love so much what I see in the Hispanic culture, a faith in God, a devotion to family, a hard work ethic. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but I think they can help us if they just come in here, learn English, come in legally. So some people would say, well, you're anti-Hispanic. Absolutely not. I think they can help strengthen this country and make us a better country again. But it has to be legal, because when we abandon the rule of law, the great irony is we then become like the nation of Mexico. They had to flee, or other nations where they had to flee to come into this country because there are no jobs where there is no rule of law.
Now, Congressman Gohmert, you're the vice chair of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security. And I'm sure that you could find, if you and your chairman wanted to, you could find room in there to hold hearings on this and make some recommendations. Is there any plan to do that?
Well, I'm certainly urging that, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to push that. I know our speaker wants to push the issue of jobs, but when you got people coming in here and threatening our sovereignty and killing American citizens being killed on our border, then it has to be taken up. So we'll keep pushing until we get that done. It's just something we have an obligation to do. We're supposed to provide for the common defense, and that doesn't mean just across some ocean. It means right here on our own borders.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's not just around Juarez and El Paso. I mean, it's a very considerable amount of land and territory. Are you in favor of an actual, for real fence for the entire border?
I am. I know there are people that say, oh, you just can't do that. How can we say we can't do something that Israel's already done? I mean, they kept having the problem of suicide bombers walk across. The trouble is, Gordon, you've got to have a commitment for it to work. You got to put the mics in the ground to pick up digging. You've got to have surveillance from satellites, from planes, whatever it takes. But if we can do that for countries around the world, we surely ought to be able to do that for our own country. It can be done. Israel does it, but there has to be a commitment. This is an important enough issue that we are going to do it.
Well, it certainly is, and I've been over there, and Israel has certainly done it, and those fences are effective. They work.
They are. Because they're committed to making them work. They've seen how it saves lives. And when you see all of the lives that have been affected by the drugs that are being brought across from Mexico, and just devastating lives. These drugs, some of them new designer drugs, some of them the meth, some of them, it's just basically runs the gamut. But and I appreciate Calderon and Fox both saying, well, it's all you Americans, all you Americans' fault because you're using the drugs that we're sending up there. And there is something to there being a market here, but the fact is that's all the more reason to prevent that crap from coming into this country, whatever it takes.
Yeah. Now, I want to just change the subject just for a moment.
Sure.
And that's, are we going to get our light bulbs back now that we've got, some power up there on the hill?
Boy, I sure hope so. And I'm urging the people on Energy and Commerce, please give me back my incandescent light bulb.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some places that maybe I know people would like to have mercury in a light bulb so they can kill off future generations, but and obviously that's being extreme. I tell you, I get beat up like you do, but seriously, give me a break. All we heard about for years and years was how horrible mercury is, and then we have a law saying you got to have mercury in your light bulb. And I tell you, when Pelosi was Speaker, in little confined spaces, they'll have a light bulb. They'd come stick those mercury lights in there. Well, you know how long it takes them to warm up. I don't want to leave a light on for an hour so it's bright enough I can see. So I kept screwing, the Pelosi to have the workmen come through and put in the mercury lights that were so dadgum expensive, and I wouldn't throw them away. But I would unscrew them every time they did and put in an incandescent light that I bought myself. So anyway, I'm hoping we'll be able to get back to that with all due respect that Mr. Edison should have.
Yes, indeed. I can just see Nancy Pelosi screwing in their light bulbs.
with the mercury, I mean, there are consequences to that kind of insane stuff. There are consequences to refusing to allow us to produce energy. You and I haven't really talked about energy before, but I bet you would agree. Sure, we don't mind going to alternative energy, but why use tax dollars or borrowed money from China to do that? Start drilling Anwar, Outer Continental Shelf, the North Slope. We've got tar sands where we've been told natural resources, we could have 1 trillion or more, maybe up to 3 trillion barrels of oil. Use that, take the federal share, and whether you want to give 25, 50%, use that to develop alternative energy. It creates jobs to produce our own resources. But I tell you, Gordon, I had some Chinese guys here a couple of years ago, leaders and they were saying, we think we figured out why you are putting all of your resources off limits. I said, I'd like to hear this. They said it's because you are going to force the rest of the world to use up all their resources, and then you'll be the only country that has energy resources. And I said, I would like to say you caught us. This is our grand scheme, but we don't think generationally or hundreds of years ahead like you guys do. We don't think about this afternoon hardly. That's not the plan. You've just got some nuts out there that are refusing to allow us to use our own energy, and they're costing this country dearly.
Yeah, we got to generate a lot of electricity to run those big fans they're putting all over the country.
Yeah. Well, and I got into it with Ed Markey one day, and I said, you've got wind apparently up in Massachusetts that will drive these windmills, and now people in Massachusetts don't even want those windmills. I said, to be fair, I don't know which way the windmills would point, whether air's coming from from the ocean side or land. In other words, I don't know if Massachusetts sucks or Massachusetts blows, but whichever it is, they can drive these windmills and produce energy, and they don't even want the windmills. I'll leave you with this other thought, too, and a lot of people don't understand it. They go through thinking, oh, everything's wonderful, when it isn't. We got to deal with some issues here. But so life is not necessarily like a box of chocolates. It's more like a jar of jalapenos. What you do today can bite you in the rear tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's wonderful to know that we've got some people like you up there on the hill. It gives us a shot at it, at any rate. Thank you so much for
love talking to you.
Do for the country.
You're welcome up here anytime. I love you coming up to the hill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Representative Louie Gohmert, ladies and gentlemen, from the great state of Texas. Okay, we'll take a little break now.